Rahu, or the North Node, is a malefic planet. So all of that destiny rhetoric you see astrologers preaching is nonsense. If you don't believe me, watch someone else's video. Now, for me to begin, this video will be about Rahu when it is placed in the third house. Rahu shows us the things that are so bad, we literally try our hardest to get away from it. The downside is you can't run away from those bad things. These things are bad because it comes with rebellion, unconventional, unusual things that are just not of the norm. It's like Aquarius, but Aquarius is more so progressive, whereas Rahu's rebellion is just simply things out of control and bad, like lawbreakers. To me, Rahu shows us who would be racist to us, who would discriminate to us. I guess that's what the RA in Rahu stands for. Rahu is foreign, exotic, and things we aren't accustomed to seeing. Whereas the third house are neighbors, your younger siblings. Emphasis should be emphasized on the word younger because at one point I thought the third house represented both siblings. The third house represents communication on social media and telecommunications, etc. First, let me get right into something I should have done in my previous Rahu videos, which I didn't. So if you aren't aware, Rahu can make certain body parts look weird, but in a bad way. The third house, I can't remember all of the body parts it represents, but I know for sure it's the arms. If you have this Rahu placement, you may have one arm, or you may have arms that are skinnier or bigger than normal. I won't exactly know because Rahu gives everyone different results. A good example of this is a guy by the name of Jeff Deeb. He does arm wrestling. He has a genetic mutation that makes his arms look massive. If he was to look at his birth or moon chart, more than likely he has Rahu in the third house. Some people have super skinny wrists. Rahu in the third house may be the culprit. The third house represents neighbors and your relationship with them. So right off the bat, you have a bad relationship with neighbors. When I say neighbors, it could be the house right on the side of you. It could be neighbors that live in the same apartment or condo building as you. The project housing in the USA comes to my mind when I think about this placement. The bad relationship you will have with your neighbors in this lifetime can be reoccurring. So don't look at it as, oh well, me and my neighbors have a good relationship right now. This may not occur right now. It may occur maybe during your Rahu Antardasha or yes, along the future. You will have a bad relationship with your neighbors and it is your neighbors' fault. Your neighbors are the bad ones. They are the human embodiment of Rahu, no joke. This is how you can tell Rahu is a malefic planet if you have this placement. You'll attract neighbors that are foreigners or of a different ethnicity. Additionally, these neighbors are bad and do things recklessly, meaning they don't care about other neighbors' boundaries, especially your boundaries. This becomes problematic because they'll obviously be the loud, always fighting or arguing types of neighbors. The arguments won't necessarily happen with you. It's just the nonsense that takes place in their households would be disturbing. Obviously, loud or noisy neighbors are annoying to anybody. I'll give an example, right? I read a female's chart before with displacement, and she told me how her neighbors are a young Indian couple and they would be arguing with each other. She was living in a condominium at the time when she told me this stuff was occurring. Another example is when I read a female's chart and asked her if she ever witnessed her neighbors being arrested before. The same day I asked was the same day that it happened. An issue with neighbors will always be them being of a different cultural background, and it would be different from what you are accustomed to seeing. Whatever beliefs they have would automatically be the worst. For example, let's say Dominicans in New York would only play loud music for 1 hour a day. You would attract the Dominican neighbors that would play music all throughout the day instead. Your neighbors have an increased chance of being alcoholics, smokers, and criminals. All of this sounds like someone that would live in the hood or the projects with displacement, when in actuality, even rich people can have the worst neighbors. So you could get rich and you won't be exempted from the effects of this Rahu placement. I think this placement can affect you if you were to stay at someone else's place. You know how we would go over to a girl's house? Actually, this happens a lot in New York. Guys would go over to see a girl, and the girl has neighbors that are gangsters. They be posted up on the stairway, so dudes end up turning around, not even trying to holler at the girl anymore. As a result of all of this, you'll automatically have bad relationship with a lot of your neighbors. Unfortunately, you would have neighbors that lie to other neighbors about you. A show, it's called Neighbors from Hell. If you watch that show, everyone must have had Rahu in the third house of their birth charts. The third house represents cousins and younger siblings, so the interactions are a lot similar with the interactions you will have with neighbors, meaning you have the bad cousins that try to harm you. Obviously, not all of them, but I can assure you that they talk bad about you behind your backs. They could cheat you too. So you would have cousins that actually try to scam you out of your own money. You will be like, what? I thought that's my cousin. Why would they do things like this to me? As a result of them often giving you bad treatment, you try repelling away from them. This is why I don't understand the whole theory of the North Node representing your destiny. Who chases after something that's bad for them or does harm to them in the first place? Now, with younger siblings, things are a bit different because you may often live with them. The foreign element Rahu can cause will obviously vary. A few examples are you have an increased chance of having siblings of a different ethnicity, which means they can live outside of the USA state you were born in, or they stay in a different state slash country than you. Another example is an increased chance of having younger siblings who have different parents than you. Maybe they were adopted or just don't share one of the same parents as you. This happens often when a person has step parents. They can look completely different than you as well, so they may have an exotic look to them. For example, let's say you were born in Japan because you are Japanese. For some reason, people can often mistake your younger siblings as people who are not Japanese. They may just straight up be half Korean or something. Whether they look differently than you or not, for sure you and those siblings will act differently, especially towards each other. Which is weird because the portrayal images you see siblings sharing with each other on TV shows like The Full House, you and your siblings are the complete opposite, probably the negative image. Outsiders and even family members like your parents would notice this. So if I have a child with displacement, then I already know the deal. The unusual relationship you and your siblings have with each other are different, and it's because of your younger siblings' fault. You'll notice this as they grow older and become adults, almost like there is a rift between you and them. I won't know exactly, but you and your younger siblings just have a not so typical sibling relationship for whatever reason. I think I know a few of the reasons. Rahu shows who cheats us, snakes us, lies to us, and lies on our name. So your younger siblings do this a lot to you. Maybe that's why you have problems trusting them? Question mark. Remember, when growing up, your younger siblings would tell you guys as parents that you hit one of them, even if you didn't. Well, oftentimes you will go through tons of scenarios where your younger siblings betray you, and you'll be like, damn, what kind of little siblings are these? Are we even related? Then prepare for dealing with a younger sibling that seems to have a mental illness. Not exactly autism, but an antisocial personality disorder like narcissism, which makes the way that they act, especially towards you, be upsetting. They have a lot of bad tendencies about them. If you watch wrestling, basically your younger siblings, cousins, and neighbors are all heels in this storyline. This storyline basically lasts a lifetime. The third house is about communications of all forms. Nowadays, though, this house emphasizes communication on social media, like texting, making a phone call, etc. Rahu is unusual things that are bad and unconventional. I can't give too many examples for this, but how you do things on social media is not of the norm. Let's say you're a YouTuber or a blogger, right? You would post things way differently than anybody else would. It won't exactly be a bad thing because it can be seen as creative. People would be like, I never saw someone do anything like that before. You can use me as an example. I'm on several different apps, but look at how I make these astrology videos. I have the Western and the Vedic charts split together. Nobody has ever done that before. You could tell I haven't copied the idea from anybody either. There is still a downside of the way you communicate on social media. Your posts on whichever app may come across as negative. This could be the unusual thing that I was talking about. You may post about gossiping a lot, or you curse a lot in your posts. It's the same as if on a phone call or with texting. You might be the friend that only texts with voice messages. You may be the friend that responds very quickly or weeks later. Your style of communication is just unorthodox, and that'll throw people off. Even when you make emails, letters, or stories, if you do keyboarding or typing classes, you would be the student that has a hard time participating in those classes. When the teacher says use this template in Microsoft Word or whichever Microsoft, you will say, you know what? I think my methods of making a business letter is better when done this way. It's bad because everybody must follow a particular routine for those types of stuff. So your material or content would immediately look different. In fact, not just with emails, but your style of communication on the whole is just different from what the average person is accustomed to seeing. The third house is short distance traveling. So when you do those things like walking, catching the bus slash train, you will always come across the most craziest stuff. Or for sure, you have the most craziest stories. Then when you ask your friends or whatever if they ever experienced anything remotely close, they'll say no. Speaking of trains, New York and England are great examples of this. I mean, the trains in New York, so many weird stuff takes place inside of those trains. I saw a video of someone setting his or her hair on fire. Then that person put the fire away without a fire extinguisher. In England, people be drunk, catching the bus, starting unnecessary fights. I saw a video where people were fighting to keep the window closed or open. I honestly didn't know what was going on. You would either have to partake in the nonsense if you have Rahu in the third house, or actually witness this stuff up close in person. Anyways, follow me on the other apps. There will be more videos to come.